Hi, Off-Road Guy here, and today I'm going to be showing you the install of AEV's 3-inch DualSport suspension with the Bilstein XP 8100 shocks. I picked this lift out for this truck. Obviously this one has the radius arms, and basically it's the same suspension setup as my wife's Power Wagon. And with her truck, I like how it rides. I like how it feels like a stock truck when you drive it, her truck. I haven't gotten the upgraded steering box with hydraulic cylinder for the complete kit yet, but this is just the lift part of it. I've already installed the rear lift, if you watched that video already. And I'm just going to go over the parts and installing it slowly. I've taken a lot of stuff apart. It's, basic stuff. You figure, like here, removing the shock. And the one thing I have installed, which is just another basic part, it's just going to take a little more, is this knuckle here. See how this black knuckle is painted? For the AEV one, it's different because if you look at this arm right here, your steering arm comes and bolts up with a nut on top here, and the arm is sitting down on this side. Well, AEV changes it over, I'm assuming because to give you better geometry than hitting it right here, they mount it on top. So they have this sleeve, which seems a little unusual to just loose machine, but otherwise, the rest of it's the basic knuckle, and I went and installed that already, which for this truck wasn't bad at all. If you got an older truck or one that's rusted up a little more, well, getting this hub off and some of the other parts are going to be a little more fun for you. But this truck, everything came apart super easy. Removed the sway bar links, and I mentioned the shock. The track bar here removed, and the alright, so with the drag link removed, they tell you you need this part off of it, and that this one, all this is not going to be using anymore. And I just wanted to show you, see the grind marks here, and here and here. Dodge was nice enough to weld this up so you couldn't adjust it. So I guess if something happened and your steering wheel went out of not straight, you would have a harder time adjusting it. I don't know why they did that, except for they don't care about you adjusting stuff. I mean, you have lock nuts, but to take and weld them, that just seems crazy to me. But I wanted to also show you something else. So once I took the whole thing off and just took it to the grinder and ground the welds down and got my big crescent wrench. But I went to take this out, and it wouldn't because of these. I guess this is to keep it in alignment in the center. I find is very unusual. But it is what it is. But now I got the AEV one, which is right here. Notice how the AEV one is so much bigger than the factory one. And the other thing is, the AEV one is made to go down, and it has the same angle, just different directions. This one's meant to go up, and this one's meant to come from the top, and this one's meant to come from the bottom. But the other thing is, what do I do about this? If you look, it's a hex, and I can't put that, so I'm thinking I'm going to just take and make a little line in there because actually in the directions it says if this is this, because of if it is too long, you can't get to the measurements. Like I measured it and I got 40¼ inches, my original one. Not that my steering wheel was straight, it was slightly off with driving. So it said to cut this, but it said to cut this if it's too long and interferes. And I don't think I'm going to cut it. I think I'm going to cut this out so it fits in there and uses that same angle. That's one little problem I found with this kit. Alright, so I've removed the steering stabilizer and both springs. And you see I got the first spacer in. This is basically a spacer kit. But, alright, so you see in the directions here, the shaded area, that's supposed to be cut off with the coil spring bucket. So basically using that, I need to cut off all this. And then apply a little paint. So that would be the next thing I got to do. Alright, so you see I took and cut it off and sprayed some paint. And the next thing we're supposed to do is drop the radius arms. So I took it, and you're supposed to drop them one at a time, and I took it, undid them, and dropped one. You can't quite get the bolt in all the way through because it's at an angle until you get the other side. And for me though, since my truck has auto level, I have an air tank right here, right where that bracket goes. So the one thing I see that they didn't really think of was and then also there's a spacer. See, you can see it right there. Spacer in there that goes through the frame to the other side, so that when you take and tighten the bolts down, it doesn't crush the frame. Okay, next thing I'm working on is basically are supposed to bolt down these. You know, bolt like there. How much? You have this bracket, which you take and put in there like that. And then the only way I can see of doing it is I'm put a pry bar up from the bottom side through one of the holes, which amazingly enough, Dodge didn't put very many holes to push stuff up through. So I'm going to get a pry bar and push it up through and hold this little plate and then pull this bolt out. So the next thing you do is install the sway bar relocation brackets, which are really easy. Just unbolt the sway bar, bolt up. There's one bolt underneath the sway bar right around here. And bolt it down, and then bolt the sway bar to the relocation bracket. Do one side at a time. And after that, it's the track bar relocation bracket, which has taken me a little bit of time to figure out. And also, one thing I'm not liking, is see that this is the nut for the track bar on the frame side. So you're supposed to take this one and see that this is the new hole for the track bar. Instead of right here, it's being relocated there. And you're supposed to grind it till you get a clear picture of it in that hole. And that's how much I've had to grind it to, which I'm not caring for as much. I don't know why. That one they should have just taken, I don't know, my best thought was taking this part right here is cast, so cast a nut, a hole the size of the nut in there, since they want it so close. And so you can just slide the nut in there and then slide the bolt through, and it captures, the nut's captured in there. That's what, in my opinion, they should have done with that, since they made these spring spacers here are cast of, they're like aluminum cast, it looks like. Alright, so I've started installing the, basically it's the front plate for the track bar relocation bracket, because it's basically, if you see, it's two sections. And this is the second time I've run into this. This bolt right here did not want to line up. I had to actually take a burr bit, and because basically you tie it in, there's two bolts, one there, and then it has this bolt for the track bar, which I got the track bar hooked up. I just need to torque it down. And this bolt for the, basically it's for the track bar relocation bracket. Which the funny part is, I find that they have you use the, this is the original bolt for my track bar. And this is the original bolt for my track bar also. One side and the other. They have this, use these in the, for mounting the front bracket for the relocation, and they use their own bolts, but they take and use these, which once I relocated it, I noticed this didn't line up, so I had to take some more material off. I know, awesome, isn't it? And then another thing, since we use both these on the track bar, one came on each side of the track bar, they gave us nuts. And like this one right here, that one was a pain in the butt, even with the modification I made to get to. Because you see down here, so what I did was both this one, the bolts, the nut isn't exactly like easy to get to or anything, or easy to, like this one, this nut, it's basically underneath the spring, it's inside the spring perch, if you get what I'm saying, because you see how the spacer for the spring is there, well, it just basically sits on top of the original spring perch, where the coil spring sat to begin with. So, getting to, like this one, it's in the center. So what I did was I took the nuts they gave me, got a washer and a chunk of metal, welded it around exactly like, basically the same as the factory ones, kinda. I mean, minus the grinding on that one. Because if you see right here, let's see, can you see it? Yeah, see my fingers on the tab? That was a pain in the butt to get in there. Even after I got everything lined up so the bolt would go through and line up, it was still a pain, because you can barely get anything into that spring bucket, because the top's covered with all this. All it is the hole right here. You see a hole right here, and then there's one on the back side of the axle, and I mean hole like slightly bigger than a pry bar can fit in. So now I just gotta take and start. I gotta install this bolt with the spacer, the bigger spacer. Bolt up the steering piece, and tighten everything down on the front axle, and then go over to the other spring bucket and put the bump stop spacer in. And then I gotta hook up the sway bars. Or the sway bar. Alright, I got everything hooked up. As you can see from this angle and this angle, everything's hooked up for the sway bar and the track bar relocation bracket. So I messed up. You're supposed to get the sway bar link here on before you bolt down the front plate for the track bar relocation bracket. Well, I really don't like the fact that you have to, if I wanted to replace this link, that I'd have to undo this. So I took the burr bit and burred out a little bit so that this can shift a little bit over. I mean, I burred out one little side on this and one on the other side. I know you're probably thinking, that's not so great, but if you look at it, see you got a big flat washer here and a flat there. So what I burred out didn't take much, but it allowed me to take and angle this in and get it in without having to remove this bracket. And if I want to replace the link here, I can without having to remove that whole big ass bracket and mess with everything. So now the last thing I'm going to show you, you see the ratchet over there is taken and installing. It's the bump stop spacer on that side. Alright, with this bracket, the bump stop spacer here and the brake line bracket, they bolt the spacer here to the spring perch here through this bracket. And you're supposed to leave all this loose, because if you look at, see this bolt right here? So what you need to do, and the thing is though, with this side, the other side, when I looked at it, you didn't need any space, any shims. But see the distance there? Yeah, see all the shims? So see all the space there? So you need to put these spacers or shims in place. Take and tighten up the two tapered bolts they have here, and then stick a wrench down in here. See where my finger is touching? Tighten that bolt up. Then I have to take these two bolts out, take it off, and there's another bolt right around this area on the bracket. So I have to take these two brackets off and tighten up the last bolt, which you can't get a wrench to right now. Kind of an interesting setup, but it's not too difficult. But it's kind of weird how, because if you look at the holes for this bracket right here, the holes aren't round. They're like square and very large. In fact, it was so large, I'm like, the bolts they gave you, the bolts and the washers were too small in my opinion. So I put slightly larger washers on there. So see how large those holes are? In fact, you can fit the head of the bolt in there. And they gave me there's smaller washers. So, and in fact, you can see, if you look right there, you can see the edge of the hole. Alright, and here's another thing. Since I have the Easton transmission, they're saying that, see this wiring harness? And now see how, because I just got done hooking up the drive shaft spacer for the front, which is kind of cool. That's just a big thick piece of aluminum. solid thick piece of aluminum. But you know, I can't believe Dodge just put this wiring harness right here. But because it says to take it and push it back and zip tie it down, which I'm not so sure of. I don't like the position. I don't like it being around the drive shaft. That has got to be like the worst location for a wiring harness in the world, is right next to the drive shaft. Well, they just like put it right next to the turbo too. This big old, I don't know, or right next to some rotating piece. Seems really bad. Push it back and zip tie it out of the way. Alright, I got the spring in place. It's not fully compressed or anything right now, but it's in there and the axle's up quite a bit. And I was going to put the shock in, but the next thing I got to do before I put the shock in is there is a, if you can see, there's a brake line they want to, as you can see, right here's the original place that the brake line bracket bolted to. And I undid this brake line bracket off, you see right here where the bolt is. But see, it's basically just extends it further and then you bolt down to the bracket here. And so what they want you to do is take and see these top, that's for the ABS wire that just kind of puts in there. So you're supposed to cut this off. I'm not sure if I want to cut it off yet, so I've taken and bent it over a little in case I want to use it for something. I'm not exactly sure yet. But they have you take and bolt it down with a nut and bolt, which I don't know, I just don't like. It's a lot easier just to have like the way Dodge did. They put a fender nut on here that the bolt went through and bolted it through a hole. And I was looking at the bracket and it's thick enough, so I took and unfortunately though they took and this hole is too big, but the one behind it is smaller. And originally this is the bracket for the passenger side. So basically I undid the two and swapped them because I want this out further instead of on the inside. So, and since it needs this little tab here to connect into a hole, and the back one is too big, and this is technically supposed to go in the rear one. Well, what I did is I took and ran it, this bracket's actually pretty thick, so I took and just ran a tap down the hole, so that basically I just take and thread the bolt right into the bracket, and because it's plenty thick enough, especially for just holding a little bracket, and it's plenty thick enough to. But I took and tapped it, swapped brackets from this one. Like I said, this one's from the passenger side, so that it'll connect into the big hole that's supposed to have a nut and bolt go through, and tap that one. So I made a little. I don't know. I wish they would have done things slightly different. Alright, so I've got this shock in, and it's pretty easy to install. The hardest part was mounting the remote reservoir, which it really isn't that hard either. Difference is I took in, they had a bolt and a nut. I took and used up the size of the bolt. I went to a 7/16 and just drilled and tapped the spring bucket to bolt it on, and then just bolts on. It's easy. The shock is almost the same as stock. The only difference is down here they take and usually the factory shock is right here, but they used a longer bolt, put the spacer in there, and ran it through everything with the nut over here. So nothing too big, easy stuff. And well, I'm just test fitting this because I would like eventually to go to 38s, maybe 38s or 40s. I'm not sure where I'm going to land, but here's a set of 38 15.5 18s on it. They're basically these are the tires off my Blazer. I pulled one tire off real quick to see what it looked like on the truck and see how it fit. And amazingly enough, like for the front, which AEV, this kit is designed when you pair it with the high mark fender flares to be able to fit 40s on your truck. I haven't put the high mark fender flares on yet. These are still the factory ones. And so I installed the suspension because you can install the suspension on these. Is set up in two ways. It's either there's a space for placement for like I think it's 37s or 40s. I opted for the 40s so that you put an extra spacer in it. If you remember in the past, the earlier in this video, I showed you the little spacer that you put in for 40s. But as you can see, I turned it. If you see right here, if you see this clean spot right here, that's the rub mark from the tire turning all the way. So I could almost fit these 38 15.5s, which they're bigger. Most people don't run 15.5s. They run 12.5. So maybe 12.5 would fit on this easy, but the 38 15.5s are hitting right there. But I haven't done nothing to the fender well or anything, because I think almost if I took and heated what I do with the fender wells on these, it's not good to cut them off or cut them away or anything, because then you open up to filling the cab and other parts that aren't designed to take mud and water and stuff, and you'll end up with corrosion issues and all that. But if you take and if you look for the front here, see how the road armor bumper takes and goes in. If you were to look at originally, the original fender came down to about here and out to here. Well, I took and cut it here. Well, first it stuck off away from the bumper about yay far. So I took and took a torch, heated up the plastic, and pushed in. I don't know, it's probably like this. I love these. I know everybody doesn't like plastic, but I think for wheel wells, plastic is the perfect material. And it allowed me to take and just heat it up and form it the way I wanted. Like down here, yeah, I took and cut a little bit here so it fit, and then took a torch, heated up right here, and bent it over so it'd protect, all the mud and stuff flicking up on the front lights that are right there, and filling, and also, rotting your bumper out from the backside out. So if you take and protect it with the plastic, so I think if I wanted to, I could probably take and heat this wheel well up over here and push it in some. I might be able to fit these 38s. I'm not sure if I want to do that, but I gotta see, because I've already bought the high mark fender flares for this, but it's just those are a lot of work. And see the fender flare here, you figure the fender is right behind and comes almost to the end of, probably right to about there. And if you look at for the high marks, you're basically cutting out all the way, and that's got to come off. You're cutting out, and basically if you look down here, to install the high mark, you're cutting the fender off right there. Especially for the front, it's a lot of work for the front. But the backs, to do the backs isn't so bad. This is a 3-inch AEV lift. Not that bad of a lift to put in. I think it's, and the reason I picked this one was on the wife's Power Wagon. It rides very much like a stock truck. So, and also I like the fact how they take and push the front axle. And see, like I know for like the 37, I believe, they push the front axle forward 1 inch. And if you're going to put 40s on it, pushes the front axle in 1.6 inches forward. Even though I wonder why, because I know for this truck right now, I don't know if they would have took and pushed it forward maybe 2 inches, 2 1/4. I'd probably be able to fit these on, because it's up here, right here to here. When you're turning, there's plenty of room. There's huge amounts of room on the front side. Like this axle could be pushed forward a little more. I mean, that's only makes also better for a better breakover angle if you're, when you're coming up against something. The breakover angle for the front. So I'm wondering why they didn't push the axle forward even a little bit more and make it maybe, like I said, 2 1/4 inches. We're all done with this video, so till the next video. See you then.